Dear students of class 11 and 12, you are welcome to my class. I am Siddhartha Shankar, an assistant professor in English in Government Horoganga College, Munshiganj. This is the continuation of my previous lecture on transformation of sentences according to meaning. And we are learning how we can transform assertive sentences affirmative sentences into negative sentences and vice versa. So far we have learned 20 rules, and today we are going to start from rule 21. So dear students, here you see a very common rule, that is in the affirmative sentence we may find every plus have or has, and in this case, to make this type of sentences negative, we use there is no plus noun plus without plus noun. Here I am going to give you some example, and these examples will make you clear. See the example. Here you see, every man has a head. Here you see, every plus has. So now what should we do? We will use there is no. There is no one without a head. See the next example. Every man has conscience. So there is no man without conscience. See another example. Every girl has dignity. Now the same rule. There is no girl without dignity. So here you see, if you find every in a sentence, we will use there is no. Now let's see rule 22. Here you see, in the affirmative sentences we may find have to or has to. In this case, to make this type of sentences negative, we use cannot but plus verb 1, or we can use cannot help plus ing with verb. So when we use cannot but, we use the basic form or base form of verb, and when we use cannot help, we use ing with the verb. See the example. Students have to study attentively. Have to is there, so we can use cannot but. Students cannot but study attentively. See another example. We have to take care of our parents. Now what should we do to make it negative? We cannot but take care of our parents. See another example. We have to follow the rules of health. We cannot but follow the rules of health. And if we use cannot help, then what should we do? We cannot help following the rules of health. Okay. Now let's move to rule 23. Here you see, in the affirmative sentence you may find had to or needed or need to. In this case, to make this type of sentences negative, we also use cannot but or cannot help. So after cannot but, we use the present form or the basic form of the verb, and after cannot help, we use ing with verb. See the example. I had to fight against poverty in my boyhood. Now cannot but or cannot help. Here you see, had to is there, this is past tense, therefore we are going to use couldn't but. I couldn't but fight against poverty in my boyhood. See the next example. She needed to help the poor girl. So here you see, the tense is simple past. Therefore, we also use couldn't but or couldn't help. She couldn't but help the poor girl. You need to obey your parents. Here you see need to is there. Now what to do? You cannot but obey your parents, because you see here the tense is simple present tense. Dear students, therefore if we find have to, has to, had to, needed or need to, in this case we use cannot but or cannot help, or according to the tense we can use couldn't but or couldn't help to make this type of sentences negative. Let's move to our next rule. Rule 24. Here you see in the affirmative sentences we may find many. If we find many, we will use not few. If we find a few in the affirmative sentence, we will use not many to make it negative. And again we may find a little in the affirmative sentence, and in this case to make this type of sentences negative we will use not much. See the example. The students has many books. So here many is there. So to make this sentence negative we will use not few. The students doesn't have a few books. So here doesn't has been used because according to the rule of making negative. The boy has a few dolls. The boy doesn't have many dolls. So a few, whenever we find a few we will use not many. There is much water in the bucket. So we will use there is not a little water in the bucket. Here you may find there is a little water in the bucket, there is not much water in the bucket. Now see rule 25. Here you see in the affirmative sentences you may find few, and in this case you will use not a single. And if you find many in the affirmative sentence you will use not a few to make these sentences negative. Let's go through some examples. Many a boys has done it. Many a is there, so not a few. Not a few boys have done it. There are few parks, not a single. There is not a single park. See another example. The man has few pictures. The man doesn't have many pictures. So dear students, you have to go through the examples very carefully, and this is not very much difficult, rather it is easy to do for you if you follow these examples again and again. Let's move to another rule. Here you see in rule number 26 you may find less than, less dash dash than, and in this case you will use not as dash dash as. So dear students, this is basically you have learned already the transformation of degree, that is from positive degree to comparative degree or from comparative to positive. Here if you make this degree from comparative to positive, this will become a negative sentence. Here you see in the affirmative, Khulna is less crowded than Dhaka. So we will bring the last subject first. Dhaka is not as crowded as Khulna. The lady is less clever than my sister. The lady is not as clever as my sister. Or my sister is not as clever as the lady. We can use also so as, because in the negative sentences we normally use so dash dash as. Say another example. The boy is less meritorious than my brother. The boy is not so meritorious as my brother, or my brother is not so meritorious as the boy. So dear students, here we have learned some rules to transform from affirmative to negative. And dear students, I think this class will helpful for you to face the examination or to learn this type of transformation easily. Dear students, you please stay safe and sound, and hopefully we will meet again in my next class. Until then, you stay fine. Thank you for watching.